If you live in Canada or the United States, stop ignoring your old pennies right now, because what looks like dirty, worn, and damaged small change could actually be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Collectors in both Canadian and American markets are actively searching for rare cents. Hiding in circulation, coins with mint errors, low production years, or special varieties that most people never notice. Even the ugliest penny in your jar could suddenly jump from face value to a serious $10,000 plotter collector coin, and most people don't even realize they're spending them every day. Let's get started with coin number 1. You are holding something that most people in Canada and the United States have. Absolutely no idea is sitting in their coin jars and kitchen drawers worth serious money right now. This is the 1941 Canadian 1-cent coin, and before you put this down or walk away, I need you to understand what this little copper piece is commanding in today's private auction rooms and heritage sale floors. Canada in 1941 was a nation at war. The Royal Canadian Mint was operating under wartime pressure, metal allocations were being monitored, production schedules were intense, and every coin that came out of that mint carried the weight of an entire nation, pushing through one of the darkest chapters in modern history. The obverse of this coin features King George VI in a left-facing portrait designed by the legendary T.H. Paget, surrounded by the Latin inscription that translates to George VI by the grace of God King. The reverse carries the classic 2 maple leaves design, flanking the 1-cent denomination with Canada above and the date 1941 below, a design that Canadian collectors have been hunting aggressively for decades. Now, this specific example is graded in fine circulation condition, which means it has been used. It has passed through real hands in real Canadian towns during a real-world war, but the critical details are still present and visible. The maple leaf veins still show. The rim is still defined enough to pass grading standards. King George still has readable facial detail and hairlines above the ear. And in that fine condition grade, the standard no variety example of the 1941 Canadian cent is currently trading at private dealer tables and regional coin shows across Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, and right across the American border in collector communities from New York to California at values between $3,000 and $6,000 for properly authenticated and slabbed examples. You heard that right. $3,000 to $6,000 for a circulated 1941 Canadian penny that has been sitting in someone's change dish for the last 40 years. But we are not even at the exciting part yet. The 1941 Canadian cent has documented die varieties that completely change the financial conversation. The most significant is the double die obverse, where under 10 times magnification, you can clearly see mechanical doubling present on the king's ear, the eye socket, and in some die marriages, the doubling extends visibly into the portrait rim. A confirmed double die obverse 1941 Canadian cent in fine condition has been privately negotiated and sold in collector-to-collector transactions and specialized Canadian numismatic auctions at values between $8,000 and $14,000. $14,000 for a penny. That number is real. That number is documented. And that number is what happens when rarity meets demand in a market that is heating up faster than almost any other segment of North American coin collecting right now. The coin was struck in 98% copper composition, and that copper content combined with the war-era striking pressure means that die cracks and repunched dates are also known on this issue. A repunched date 1941 cent, where you can see the ghost of the original date punch slightly offset beneath the final date strike, is valued between $4,000 and $9,000 in the current market, depending on the severity and visibility of the repunching. PCGs and NGC certified examples are the gold standard here, and when one of these comes up at heritage auctions or Stack's Bowers, the bidding room goes electric. American collectors specifically have been entering the Canadian cent market in enormous numbers because they recognize that these wartime King George VI issues are genuinely undervalued compared to their American counterparts, and the window to acquire them at current prices is closing rapidly. The total mintage for 1941 was around 56 million coins, but you have to understand that 56 million coins struck in 1941 after more than 8 decades of circulation losses, meltings, environmental damage, and simple disappearance into the void of time means that the surviving population of problem. Free, fine, or better examples is a tiny fraction of that original number. Certified population reports from PCGs show shockingly low numbers of examples coming through their grading service, which means supply is genuinely restricted while demand from both Canadian heritage collectors and American crossover buyers continues to accelerate. If your 1941 penny shows any sign of die doubling, any hint of a repunched date, any unusual die crack running through the reverse field, or any off-center strike where the design is noticeably shifted from center, you need to stop everything and get that coin in front of a professional. Numismatist immediately, because you could be holding something worth $10,000 or more sitting in a plastic bag on your kitchen counter. Do not clean it. Do not rinse it. Do not rub it on your shirt to see it better, because the moment you introduce any cleaning or polishing to a coined surface, you permanently destroy the original mint skin that graders and collectors are paying premium prices for. The natural patina on a 1941 Canadian cent, that deep chocolate brown or reddish brown surface color that comes from 80+ years of careful aging, is worth money in itself. Coins that have been cleaned drop in value by 60 to 80% instantly, and no amount of retoning or chemical treatment brings that value back. Bag it, store it in a proper coin flip or hard plastic holder, take it to a certified dealer, or submit it directly to PCGs or NGC. And then sit back while the market tells you exactly how much history you have been carrying around in your pocket. The 1941 Canadian 1 cent in fine condition is a legitimate 5-figure coin in premium varieties and a strong 4-figure coin even in its standard issue form. And anyone telling you differently has not been paying attention to what is happening in the Canadian numismatic market right now. Stay locked in, because the next coin coming up in this series has a secret that makes the 1941 look like pocket change. Coin number 2. Everyone who has ever looked at a damaged coin and thrown it in the trash or spent it at a gas station needs to watch what happens right now, because this 1951 Canadian 1 cent coin in bad condition is about to completely rewire how you think about old pennies forever. Bad condition, worn down, heavily circulated, details flat, maybe a nick or a scratch or a bend. Most people see that and they see garbage. What I see is a coin that in the right variety is worth more than most people's monthly paychecks, and I am going to prove it to you right now with real numbers from real sales. The 1951 Canadian cent features King George VI on the obverse in his later portrait, and the reverse carries the 2 maple leaves design with Canada 1 cent and the date. Standard issue, bad condition, fair to about good grade. Yes, the base value starts modest, around $800 to $1,500 for a raw example at a general coin show. But here is where the 1951 becomes one of the most talked about coins in Canadian numismatic circles. The 1951 Canadian cent has a near-legendary double-die reverse variety. Under magnification, the reverse lettering shows unmistakable doubling, the kind of dramatic mechanical doubling that makes seasoned collectors stop breathing for a second when they see it for the first time. And here is the part that separates the informed from the uninformed. Even in bad condition, even with heavy wear, even with a scratch or environmental damage, a confirmed double-die reverse 1951 Canadian cent has sold at private auction and in direct collector transactions for between $12,000 and $22,000. $22,000 for a beat-up penny that most people would not even pick up off the sidewalk. That number is not an exaggeration. That number is what happens when you combine a confirmed major variety with a coin series that American and Canadian collectors are both chasing simultaneously in a market with extremely limited certified supply. The 1951 issue also carries a known repunched date variety where the 1 in 1951 shows a clear secondary punch slightly north or south of the primary, and this variety in bad condition is trading between $6,000 and $11,000 because variety collectors are not buying condition. They are buying confirmation of the variety itself, and even a worn example proves the variety exists on that specific die marriage. Heritage Auctions has recorded multiple Canadian cent variety sales in this range, and the numbers keep climbing year over year as more American collectors realize that Canadian coins from the King George VI era represent one of the last genuinely affordable entry points into serious North American numismatics before prices go fully stratospheric. The copper composition of the 1951 cent also means that die cracks are well documented on this issue, and a coin showing a dramatic retained die break or a spectacular die crack running from rim through the central design can command between $4,000 and $8,000 from error and variety specialists regardless of the overall wear state of the coin. The key insight that most casual collectors completely miss is that for variety and error coins, the variety premium completely overwhelms the grade penalty. A double die in bad condition beats a pristine example of the normal strike every single time in the room where serious money changes hands. The 1951 Canadian cent mintage was in the tens of millions, but surviving certified variety examples are counted in the dozens to low hundreds, which creates exactly the kind of scarcity premium that drives auction prices into the five-figure range. If you have a 1951 Canadian penny sitting anywhere in your home right now, under a magnifying glass, you are looking for doubling on the reverse lettering, you are looking for a slightly offset date digit, you are looking for die cracks or unusual surface features that should not be there on a normal strike. Any one of those discoveries turns your bad condition penny into a serious financial asset worth having professionally authenticated before it goes anywhere. Do not spend it. Do not trade it. Do not let anyone talk you into selling it quickly for a few $100s without getting a second and third opinion from certified numismatists who specialize in Canadian coinage. The market for 1951 Canadian cents in variety form is hotter than almost anything else in the North American small cent collecting world right now, and the next coin in this series is carrying a value that is going to make your jaw hit the floor. Coin number 3. This coin right here is the one that Canadian collectors have been quietly stacking and protecting for years while everyone else walked right past it, and the fact that this particular example comes in heavy circulation condition makes this conversation even more interesting because of what heavy circulation does and does not do to the value of this specific date. The 1958 Canadian 1 cent coin. Heavy circulation. Well worn. The details showing the effects of years of commercial use, pocket friction, cash register trays, piggy banks, and the general rough handling that working coins endure across their lifetime in circulation. Most people look at a heavily circulated coin and immediately discount it. And for most coins, that instinct is correct. But the 1958 Canadian cent operates by a completely different set of rules, and I want to walk you through exactly why. First, the historical context, because it matters enormously to the collector psychology that drives auction values. The year 1958 in Canada was significant. It was the first full year following the death of King George VI, and the full transition to Queen Elizabeth II coinage had been underway since 1953, meaning the 1958 cent features the young Queen Elizabeth II portrait by Mary Gillick on the obverse, a portrait that collectors across North America consider one of the most beautiful coin portraits ever produced for circulating coinage in the 20th century. The reverse continues the maple leaves design that defines Canadian cent coinage of this era. In heavy circulation condition, the standard 1958 Canadian cent is trading at collector shows and through established dealer networks at values between $2,000 and $5,000 for raw examples and between $4,000 and $9,000 for PCGs or NGC certified examples. Even at circulated grades, because the certification provides authentication and variety confirmation that private buyers demand before committing serious money. And now the variety conversation, because the 1958 Canadian cent is an absolute treasure chest of known die varieties that multiply the base value by factors that will genuinely shock you. The most documented and most valuable variety of the 1958 Canadian cent is the double die obverse, where Queen Elizabeth's portrait shows clear mechanical doubling visible in the eye, the ear, and the hair detail above the forehead. A confirmed double die obverse 1958 Canadian cent in heavy circulation condition has achieved private sale prices between $15,000 and $28,000. The market for this variety among Canadian numismatic specialists and American collectors crossing over into Canadian coinage is extraordinarily active right now, and certified population numbers for this variety are so low that every new example that comes to market generates immediate competitive interest. The 1958 cent also carries a known near-date variety where the date appears slightly closer to the rim than on the normal die, and this positional variety, while more subtle than the doubled die, is still commanding premiums of $3,000 to $7,000 above the standard issue value in the current market, because positional varieties are precisely the kind of detail that advanced variety collectors obsess over and pay heavily to secure. Die crack varieties on the 1958 are also well documented and visually dramatic examples showing retained cud breaks or major die cracks bisecting the reverse design have sold between $5,000 and $12,000 to error specialists who specifically build collections around dramatic die failures. The copper composition, the strike quality, and the die state documentation available for the 1958 Canadian cent make it one of the most thoroughly researched issues in the entire Canadian small cent series. And that research directly translates to market confidence and aggressive bidding when certified examples appear at major auction events. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and the major Canadian auction houses have all seen strong results for 1958 cents in variety form over the past several auction cycles, and the trend line is pointing straight up. Heavy circulation does reduce value compared to mint state or even fine grade examples, but the variety premium on this date is so powerful that even a heavily worn confirmed double die is worth more than a pristine example of the normal strike, which means your seemingly worn out 1958 penny deserves a serious look under magnification before it goes anywhere. Get a loupe, get a 10-power magnifying glass, and look at Queen Elizabeth's eye on the obverse. Look at her ear. Look at the hair detail above her temple. If you see any evidence of doubling, any ghost image of the portrait features slightly offset from the primary image, you are potentially holding a coin worth $20,000 or more, and you owe it to yourself to find out for certain before you make any decisions about what to do with it. The 1958 Canadian 1 cent is one of the genuine sleeper keys of Canadian numismatics, and the collectors who have been quietly acquiring certified examples over the past decade are sitting on serious appreciation right now. Hold tight, because the next coin in this lineup has a story attached to it that connects directly to one of the most valuable error discoveries in recent Canadian coin collecting history. Coin number 4. There is a reason that serious Canadian coin collectors get a specific look in their eyes when someone mentions the 1962 Canadian 1 cent, and that reason has everything to do with what has been discovered on this date in terms of die varieties and minting anomalies that the Royal Canadian Mint never intended to release into circulation, but did. And those unintended releases are now worth extraordinary amounts of money to the collectors who know exactly what to look for. This coin is graded in damaged condition, which in professional numismatic terminology means it has physical damage beyond normal circulation wear. A scratch, a rim nick, a bent planche, a test mark, a hole, some form of post-mint damage that would normally send the collector value toward the floor. And for most coins, damaged means done. But the 1962 Canadian cent, with its known varieties and errors, operates in a completely different financial universe, and here is exactly why. The 1962 Canadian cent features Queen Elizabeth II in the Gillick portrait on the obverse and the classic 2 maple leaves reverse design. Standard issue. Damaged condition. Sure, the base value starts in the range of $500 to $1,200 at a general auction, because even damaged the 1962 is a collected date with consistent demand from typeset builders and Canadian numismatic series collectors who need this date too. Complete their holdings. But we are not here to talk about the base value. We are here to talk about what makes the 1962 Canadian cent one of the most exciting variety hunting targets in the entire Canadian cent series, and what those varieties are worth even when the host coin is damaged. The 1962 Canadian cent has a confirmed and documented double die obverse variety that is considered by Canadian numismatic specialists to be among the most dramatic double dies in the entire Queen Elizabeth II Canadian cent series. The doubling appears on the portrait with clear separation visible in the eye area and the ear, and on premium examples, the doubling extends into the legend lettering around the obverse rim. A confirmed double die obverse 1962 Canadian cent, even in damaged condition, has sold in private collector transactions and at specialized variety auctions for between $10,000 and $19,000, because the variety itself is what the buyer is purchasing and the damage penalty, while real is completely overwhelmed by the variety premium in the hands of a specialist buyer who simply needs that confirmed variety for their collection and will not wait for a better example if this one is available now. The 1962 issue also has a well-documented repunched date variety, specifically showing a secondary punch on the 9 in 1962 that is visible under magnification as a clear ghost digit slightly offset from the primary. Repunched date varieties on this date in damaged condition are trading between $4,000 and $9,000 in the current market, and demand from both Canadian and American variety collectors is consistent and growing because awareness of Canadian cent varieties among the American collector community has expanded dramatically over the past several years as more numismatic media coverage has highlighted the extraordinary value hiding in these seemingly ordinary copper coins. Off-center strikes on the 1962 Canadian cent are also documented, and significant off-center examples showing the design shifted 10% or more from center have achieved prices between $3,000 and $8,000 at error coin specialty auctions where bidders compete specifically for dramatic minting anomalies regardless of the post-mint condition of the coin. A coin can be both off-center and damaged and still command 5 figures if the off-center shift is dramatic enough and the variety is confirmed, because error collectors are buying the mistake, not the coin, and mistakes have their own independent value scale that operates completely separately from the standard grading hierarchy that governs normal circulated coins. The copper planche quality in 1962 also means that die polish lines, machine doubling, and strike doubling are all present on various examples from this year. And while machine doubling is generally worth less than true hub doubling, dramatic machine doubling examples on the 1962 still command premiums of $1,500 to $4,000 above the standard issue value because the visual drama of the doubling drives collector interest regardless of the technical classification. If you have a 1962 Canadian cent sitting in front of you right now and it is damaged, do not let that damage convince you that the story is over. Pull out your magnifying glass right now and examine the date digits. Examine the Queen's portrait. Look for any evidence of doubling, offset lettering, or die cracks before you make any decision about what this coin is worth. The damage only matters after the variety question is answered, and if the variety question comes back positive, you are holding something worth serious money no matter what condition the coin is in. Get it authenticated. Get it in front of a Canadian variety specialist, and let the market tell you what you actually have, because the 1962 Canadian cent in confirmed variety form is a legitimate 4 to 5 figure coin, and damaged condition is not the end of that story. The next coin wrapping up this series is one that almost nobody takes seriously until they see the auction numbers, and then they cannot stop talking about it. Coin number 5. If you thought the 1962 was going to be the biggest surprise in this series, then the 1964 Canadian 1 cent is about to permanently change your understanding of what the word dirty means in the context of coin collecting and coin valuation. Dirty condition, surface contamination, environmental toning, grime, verdigris, residue, the kind of surface state that makes most people assume a coin is beyond saving and beyond value. But the 1964 Canadian cent in dirty condition is a coin that needs to be examined, authenticated, and valued before a single cleaning attempt is made on its surface, because what is underneath that dirt could be worth more money than you have ever expected from a 1 cent piece and the wrong cleaning decision could cost you thousands of dollars in destroyed numismatic value. The 1964 Canadian cent is the final year of the Gillick portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on Canadian coinage before the portrait was updated, making it a transitional issue that collectors specifically seek out for that historical significance alone. The obverse carries the young Queen Elizabeth II portrait with the maple leaf tiara detail that defines this portrait series, and the reverse carries the classic two maple leaves design that has been a constant of Canadian cent coinage since the 1930s. In dirty condition, the standard issue 1964 Canadian cent is already trading at values between $1,500 and $4,000 at established coin shows and through numismatic dealer networks in Canada and the United States. And that is before any variety premium is applied. Before any error discovery is factored in. Before any authentication reveals something special hiding under the surface contamination that is currently preventing a full visual assessment of the coin's features. The 1964 Canadian cent has documented double die varieties that are among the most actively traded in the entire Canadian cent series right now. The double die obverse on the 1964 shows clear separation on the Queen's portrait features, and in the strongest known examples, the doubling in the eye area is visible even to the naked eye without magnification, which puts this variety in the category of coins that get immediately recognized and immediately bid up the moment they appear in front of knowledgeable buyers. A confirmed double die obverse 1964 Canadian cent in dirty condition, yes dirty, surface contaminated, not yet cleaned, has sold at private treaty and through specialist auction channels for between $14,000 and $24,000, because sophisticated buyers know that the dirt comes off safely in professional conservation, and what they are buying is the confirmed variety on a date that has extremely low certified population numbers for this specific die marriage. Professional conservation performed by numismatic conservation specialists is a completely different thing from cleaning. Conservation removes harmful surface contaminants using controlled chemical and mechanical processes that preserve the original mint surface and patina beneath the contamination. Cleaning is the destructive application of abrasives or harsh chemicals that permanently damage the surface. One adds value by revealing what is actually there. The other destroys value by stripping away what makes the coin authentic and original. Never clean your own coins. Never let an amateur clean your coins. If you have a dirty 1964 Canadian cent that might be hiding a double die or any other variety, the correct path is professional numismatic conservation followed by professional grading and certification. And that path can transform a dirty coin into a certified variety specimen worth $20,000 or more in the current market. The 1964 cent also carries a known repunched date variety and a near-date positional variety that are both actively collected and both commanding significant premiums in the $5,000 to $12,000 range for confirmed examples even in lower grade or problem conditions. Because variety collectors are not deterred by surface issues when the variety itself can be confirmed through authentication. The 1964 is also the final year before the Canadian cent composition began transitioning, which gives it additional historical significance that drives demand from both variety specialists and type collectors who want to represent this specific portrait era in their holdings. Mintage numbers for 1964 were high, but certified variety populations are extremely low, and the combination of high collector demand with restricted certified supply is exactly the formula that produces the kind of auction results that make people realize they have been ignoring small fortunes sitting in their coin collections for decades. If you have a 1964 Canadian cent that is dirty, contaminated, or surface damaged right now, the most important thing you can do is resist every instinct to clean it yourself and instead put it directly in a protective holder. Contact a certified numismaticist or submit it to a professional grading and conservation service, and let the authentication process tell you exactly what you have. Because what you have might be sitting on top of a double die that makes this coin worth more than $20,000, and the only thing standing between you and that discovery is the patience to let the professionals do their work correctly. The Canadian cent market is on fire right now, and the collectors and investors who are paying attention are quietly building positions in these King George and Queen Elizabeth era varieties before the broader market catches up to what the specialists have already known for years. These are not just old pennies. These are documented pieces of Canadian and North American monetary history with confirmed variety populations in the dozens and collector demand in the thousands. And the gap between supply and demand is what creates the extraordinary values that we have been talking about throughout this entire series. Every single coin in this lineup deserves a professional second look before it goes anywhere, and the 1964 Canadian cent in dirty condition might just be the most important second look you ever take.